What's up, everybody? My name is Dan Kornhauser,
And my name is Bobby Hunt.
I'm
and
Greg Gillert.
thank you guys for tuning in. We are now balls deep in draft season. The NFL draft is literally just a few hours away for us, and we've covered the offensive side of the ball. We've covered the defensive side of the ball. All the position groups. We've highlighted our favorite players, guys we're watching early and late. We've done everything analyze-wise, but now it's time, boys. It's time to do our mock draft. And Bob and I, you guys know, Greg is one of our fiend football buddies. Almost, no, not almost. He is as much of a fiend for the NFL and all things football as we are. So he's also a Titans fan, and we've referred to Greg several times on the show. And if you want to know the face that I want to punch that I've said before, that's the face.
Yeah.
That's the face right there. Look at that screen, and I want to
it.
punch it. So here we are. Greg, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Here's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to run down the whole first round, picks 1 through 32. Each of us are going to have a pick. Bob's going to start, then Greg goes second, and I'll be picking third, and we'll be rotating that way at every pick until the first round is done. This is to be correct. This is what we think will actually happen, not necessarily what we would do. So without further ado, with the first pick in the 2020 Bob and Dan, or Dan and Bob Talking Sports show mock draft, Bob and the Cincinnati Bengals are now on the clock, and you have 2 minutes starting now.
All right, so the clock has started. Cincinnati Bengals picking number 1, and it's been the presumptive pick for months now. It's got to be Joe Burrow, quarterback from LSU, without a doubt. He's a franchise quarterback. I firmly believe that. Do I think he's going to be an all-time great? Not necessarily, but I do think he's a 15-year starter in the league. I do think he's a franchise quarterback coming off a 60 TD season, winning the Heisman, 76% completion percentage. Even when you watch the tape, just impressive pocket awareness, able to make all the throws. The only knocks on him, maybe doesn't have the biggest cannon arm, and that's about it, honestly. Maybe you want more years of production out of him since he was only at LSU for 2 years after transferring from Ohio State. But this is a slam dunk pick for the Bengals. They need a quarterback. They were the worst team in the league last year. And it's not barren there. They do have Joe Mixon. They have Tyler Boyd. A.J. Green's coming back. So the Bengals are in a position to do well. And I think Joe Burrow is a home run pick for them. Local kid. It's got to be Joe Burrow, number 1.
Hard to argue with that pick, Bob. Everything you said is absolutely spot on, and that's the pick. You left plenty of time on the board. We love it. Greg, do you have any disagreement with this?
No, not at all.
Not at all. Let's move on with the second pick. Greg is on the board with the Washington Redskins.
All right. So despite Dan's prayers to the fantasy gods, the Redskins will be running to the podium to draft Chase Young, edge rusher from Ohio State. Probably the best edge rusher prospect in the last 15 years, right up there with Clowney and Myles Garrett. They have a defensive-minded coach, new coach, in Ron Rivera. So I don't see them pulling the Cardinals from last year and drafting a quarterback at number 2. So that's the easy pick, is Chase Young right there.
I mean, yeah, I've been saying it for quite some time that my wet dreams involve Chase Young being on the board for the Lions at 3 because someone trades up to draft Tua or whatever the hell after Burrow gets picked. But alas, Greg just puts a knife right in my heart, and I hate him already. But that's the pick. Chase Young, number 2, Ohio State edge rusher. Number 3, Detroit Lions, right here. And this guy, me, are on the clock. So
Shaking my head.
the clock has begun. I think for the Lions, this pick comes down to just a couple of players. I know there's more than these 2 guys in the conversation, but to be honest, there really shouldn't be. The 2 guys that I have my sights square on are Jeff Okudah, Ohio State cornerback, who it was the best corner in the draft, was one of the best, if not the best corners in the country this past season. True lockdown corner, everything you want from the position, size-wise, speed-wise, leadership-wise, off the field, he's squeaky clean. And he would be a plug and play from day one. We lost Darius Slay to the Eagles for a third-round pick and I think a fifth-rounder, which was okay because the Lions weren't going to pay him anyway. But we do still have a hole. Despite adding Trufant over from Atlanta as a free agent, he is only, I think, on a 1 or 2 year deal anyway. So how much can we invest in him? The other player is linebacker Isaiah Simmons from Clemson. Swiss Army knife of sorts. When we did our NFL defensive side of the ball preview, we talked about the linebackers. We talked about his versatility, his skill, his athleticism, all the things he can do, the multitude of positions he played on defense this past year for Clemson. And he's just one of those rare talents. And he would fit perfectly into Matt Patricia's New England-esque defense that they try to run with different guys doing different things. All that being said, with the third pick in this draft, the Lions will take Jeff Okudah, corner from Ohio State. The position is just way too important. The value is there positionally, player-wise. He's one of my top players on my board, one of my favorite players in this whole draft. And if the Lions take him, I'll be very pleased. They'll end up with my 5th overall prospect and a key building block for the defense. 4th pick, the New York Football Giants. And Bob, you're on the clock.
All right. So my favorite team, the New York Football Giants, have a lot of needs across the board, need a lot of help on defense at all 3 levels, need a premier pass rusher, but they also need offensive line help, particularly at tackle right now. Right tackle has just been a sieve for years. Eric Flowers was a major bust a few years ago. So there's a lot of different ways the Giants can go here at 4. And we're doing what we think will happen. We want to try to get these picks right. It's going to be very difficult, and trades are going to be difficult to project as well. This is a spot where the Giants may trade out of. I do believe that they are interested in doing that. I do think they want to move down a little bit on the board. They feel they can probably get an offensive tackle that they really like a few spots lower, whether that be with the Jaguars at 9 or any other team that may want to move up, or even the Falcons if they want to move up so far to take someone. We were hearing rumors about them maybe going up to 2 to take Chase Young. Now, granted, Chase Young won't be there at 4, but there's options basically for them to trade out of this pick. But since we're staying here, we're not doing trades.
Nope.
Ultimately, I would love for them to pick Isaiah Simmons, the star linebacker out of Clemson. I think he would be a tremendous playmaker for them. But they know they need to help Daniel Jones and get him someone to protect him. And they also need a left tackle. Nate Solder's still going to be in the fold and start for at least this year. But they also need someone who can start at right tackle this rookie year, but slide over to left eventually. I'm going to go with Jedrick Wills. I've heard those rumors that he will be the pick out of Alabama. I buy some of that. I do think the Giants have been easy to read over about their draft plans over the last few years. And he was protecting Tua Tagovailoa's blind side and did a great job. He's probably the most technically sound of the tackles in this draft, and I think the Giants will take him at number 4.
No issues that he played primarily on the right side of the line because his quarterback was left-handed.
No, not at all, mainly because of what I stated with Solder. I mean, Solder's still going to be in the fold, even though he's been a disappointment as a free agent signing, and he's getting paid way too much, highly overpaid. There's been a bust of a free agent signing. He's still better than some of the options out there, and he's going to be starting at left tackle at least for the rookie year of whoever they take, whether it is Wills or Tristan Wirfs from Iowa or even Mekhi Becton of Louisville. Whoever it winds up being, they're going to probably start at right tackle in their rookie season.
And that was the buzzer. So Bob went in a little bit into overtime, but I like it. That was a good thought. And now, after that Wills pick 4th overall, Greg, you're on the board 5th overall with the Miami Dolphins.
All right, the Miami Dolphins. I think Brian Flores is going to get his quarterback here. I know Miami fans for the last probably year and a half is the slogan's been tank for Tua, but I think they're going to be going with Justin Herbert right here. I think the injury risks that come with drafting Tua are just too much for them to gamble on right now. So yeah, they have 2 other picks in the first round. So I think they go grab their franchise quarterback here, and probably get him some weapons later in the draft.
So you're drinking that Kool-Aid, huh? You're on that Herbert is now their guy shtick that they've been peddling the last month.
Well, Tua is he's got the better tape. He's got the national championship. He's got the Heisman, but I don't know, man. You can't risk drafting that guy right now.
Yeah,
Not at 5.
the medicals concern you that much, huh?
Oh yeah, yeah.
See, I don't share that in that thought. I was telling Bob when we were doing our offensive previews that he's still a top 5 prospect overall for me. He is my number 2 quarterback behind Burrow. But I was telling Bob, I think this might just be – it's been Tua. It's been Tua for over a year. And the owner even went to Alabama games just for Tua. Blatantly just said it. He and Tua also were at the same New Year's Eve party, schmoozing with the owner. I mean, come on. It's too good to be true. And he's a better quarterback. But like Bob says, where there's smoke, there's fire. Right, Bob?
Right, and we probably all think he's a better quarterback when healthy, but the medical concerns inevitably influence the decision makers in the NFL, and I get it. You're going to be paying him a lot of money over only a 4-year contract with a 5th-year option, so I kind of understand it. I still would take Tua. I'd rather swing for the fences, especially given the fact that they have 2 other first-round picks.
Yeah, I agree. Now, that's 2 quarterbacks off the board, and I am now on the clock, number 6 overall with the L.A. Chargers. San Diego Superchargers.
It just doesn't have the same ring as the San Diego Superchargers. Oh, man, I love that song.
San Diego, in German, a whale's vagina.
Nice Anchorman line. Now,
yes.
So, who are you taking?
Back to this. So, the Chargers are an interesting team. Bob knows how high I was on this squad last year. I had them in the playoffs, and I was very, very high on this team overall. I love their defense. I love the weapons they had on offense. And I was wrong. But they've had a good offseason so far. Adding Chris Harris over from Denver is a nice get. Linval Joseph, Brian Bulaga shores up the right tackle spot. So those are some key signings in free agency this offseason. But they're not done. Their offensive line could still use some help. They still need an offensive tackle badly. They could use up that linebacker. But for me, the key spot here is quarterback. This is a playoff team. They are a quarterback away, in my opinion. So while, yes, they need a tackle, and they need a tackle badly, so badly. Because right now, Bulaga's definitely slated in at right tackle. But right now, their options from that tackle are maybe Sam Tevi, maybe Trey Pipkins, who they drafted in the 3rd round last year. Maybe Trent Scott, who's an undrafted free agent.
Not going to cut it.
It's ugly. Maybe it might be Dan Kornhauser. It's really threatening out there. They traded Russell Okung. They got Trey Turner from Carolina. So they have a hole at tackle. So they could go tackle. They could go a couple of other ways. But with this pick, the former San Diego Chargers take Tua Tagovailoa. They need that quarterback. I do not trust what they have currently at the position in Tyrod Taylor. I feel like we know what he is at this point, and that's the clock.
Yeah, that's the clock. I was going to say, when is that thing going to ring?
So I'm going to say Tua goes 6 to the Chargers, and Bob, you are now on the clock with the Carolina Panthers.
All right. I probably won't even have as much time as that. You're probably starting that clock before I even
The clock is started.
Speaking. All right, so I have the Carolina Panthers pick, and there's a lot of different ways they can go here. They have a lot of holes on their defense after this offseason. They have a whole new coaching staff. Matt Rule's brought in from Baylor, paid him a lot of money to pry him away and keep him away from the Giants. And David Tepper got his man, the new owner there in Carolina. Panthers are probably going defense as a result. I think they could still use weapons on offense, but you have McCaffrey already there getting a new contract about a week ago. Quarterback, they brought in Teddy Bridgewater, but they have DJ Moore there. They have Curtis Samuel. They have some pieces that they like on offense. Tight end, they could still use someone and maybe tackle, but ultimately they just lost so many defensive players. They could go Isaiah Simmons here. They could also go Derek Brown out of Auburn. This one's a difficult one. And the way the board fell, the fact that Isaiah Simmons is on the board, I'm going to pick Isaiah Simmons for the Carolina Panthers. Now, in my own mock, I'd probably have Derek Brown here, but given how we've drafted and the fact that Isaiah Simmons is still sitting there, I think Panthers would be hard-pressed not to take him. They even though they have a new coaching staff and GM in place, actually Marty Herney's been there before. And with all the holes on defense, I just figured they're going to like Isaiah Simmons the most. And they've drafted similar players before in Shaq Thompson and Thomas Davis.
And they lost Luke Kuechly. They're going to need another leader on that defense, and they need pieces everywhere on that defense. So he'll help out for sure from day one if he's picked.
And I absolutely love Simmons, just one of my favorite players in the draft. He's 3 on my board. He can cover. He can line up in the slot, pass rush, line up as like a middle linebacker, a corner. It's ridiculous. He's just athletic freak. Ran a 4.39 at the combine. He's a slam dunk pick if he's there at 7 for the Panthers.
Fucking beast, dude. So Isaiah Simmons is now off the board. Greg, you are on the clock. Number 8 overall with the Arizona Cardinals, and the clock has started.
All right. If you would have asked me what route the Cardinals were going at the start of the offseason, I would have said that they definitely would have been picking one of the big 3 wide receivers right here. But being that they traded for DeAndre Hopkins at the start of free agency, they need to protect their franchise, the number 1 pick last year in the draft, Kyler Murray. So I have them drafting my best lineman in this draft class, Tristan Wirfs from Iowa, tackle. They got a lot of holes, but they got to protect Kyler Murray. So that's the route I got them going.
And really, I mean, that's not a bad pick at all, considering when you look at their roster and all the moves that they made this offseason. The fact that they brought back DJ Humphries, they signed him to a long-term deal to come back and be their starting tackle. I think that was a great move on their behalf. That was the first step that they needed to take. Like you said, protecting Kyler is top priority. And just because the kid can scramble and run around doesn't mean you want him to. He's tiny. So, again, you don't want him to get those hits. It's not Lamar Jackson out there as much as I'm sure Arizona fans want it to be. But they did also bring back Marcus Gilbert at right tackle. He's injury prone and he's not played a full season in like 3 or 4 years. So he can't really be relied upon. So Tristan Wirfs or any of these tackles who are left would be a great pick for Arizona.
I just want to throw this out there. He could be Lamar Jackson. He was a better prospect than Lamar. So we'll see how he progresses in year 2.
Great with the hot takes. Fresh out the kitchen.
Well, he was drafted number 1 for a reason. Lamar was getting here a 2nd-round pick. But I think I figured out what noise I'm hearing. It's probably the scrolling on your laptop. It's got to be. I hear a little something when I see your hand near the thing. Got a little scrolling sound there, Dan?
No.
Right on the podcast? Yeah.
Mm-mm.
I hear it.
Nope.
You don't need your spreadsheets. You should know who you're picking.
You don't hear anything, all right? So anyway.
Yeah, that's nothing.
The Jacksonville Jaguars and myself are now on the clock. Now, if this is the way it went in real life for the Jaguars, I'm sure they'd be a little disappointed because it would be nice, I'm sure, to see Simmons still on the board or maybe even one of these quarterbacks so they could trade back. But Jacksonville is a team that needs a lot of help. They lost a lot of guys this offseason. Yes, they brought back Yannick Ngakoue on the franchise tag, but he's most likely to get moved at some point this offseason or during the draft, most likely, if anything. It's now or never. But they lost a lot of guys, and they lost guys at all the levels. Calais Campbell got traded to the Ravens. They've just been decimated. Jalen Ramsey, they traded A.J. Bowie to the Broncos. So if you can kind of see where I'm going towards the defensive side of the ball with this pick. And honestly, they could use help. They could go with Derek Brown here or Javon Kinlaw. Either one of them would be great pieces. They could go maybe trade down and aim for Ken Murray, get another pick later on, and maybe a 2nd rounder, go for Kenneth Murray or Xavier McKinney or Chazon or somebody like that. But alas, I don't have them going any of those routes. It probably should be Derek Brown here because I think that would be considered a steal at this point. But considering the piss-poor situation that the Jaguars are in at the corner position, I'm just not a fan. They added a couple of veteran free agents on 1-year deals. Nothing special. I'm not impressed by Rashad Melvin. I'm not impressed by DJ Hayden, Perry Nickerson in the slot at all. So I'm going to have them taking C.J. Henderson, corner from Florida, who leading up in the last few weeks has been getting a lot of love, and apparently there's a lot of teams that consider him the better corner over Okuda. And we'll see what happens. With that in mind, the 10th pick in the draft, Cleveland Browns and Bob are on the clock.
All right, the Cleveland Browns sitting at number 10. A lot of good options here, the way the board's fallen. And also it's just a very deep draft in general as well. Now, this is probably another spot similar to where I had before where the Giants could maybe trade out of. I could definitely see Cleveland trading with someone they're rumored to love, Javon Kinlaw, maybe also be looking at a tackle. And they could trade back here and still get a good tackle. There are 2 off the board in Wirfs and Wills, but maybe they trade back and can get Becton, or if they really love someone else like Josh Jones or even Ezra Cleveland, definitely could get them in the first round if they trade back. But we're not doing trades. I think if they're sitting right here, it's tempting to take a CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy, but they don't need a receiver like that. Not with what they currently have. And even though they do love Javon Kinlaw, Derek Brown could be the pick here. They would also be surprised probably that Derek Brown would even be here. But ultimately, their O-line is just absolutely piss poor. I like that they brought in Jack Conklin, that they brought in Austin Hooper, but they still need help along that offensive line. Greg Robinson had a drug bust over the offseason. He ain't going to be back. He's a free agent anyway. Their left tackle. And I think it's got to be Andrew Thomas here. We've heard some rumors that he's going to be picked around 9 or 10, whether it's the Jaguars or the Browns. And he would be a great pick. I do think he's better than Becton right now. Becton might be a higher ceiling player in the league, but he's much more raw. Didn't play in an offense that you could really tell how great he is in pass blocking or even run blocking. And so I think they go with a more professional-ready Andrew Thomas out of Georgia, playing in the SEC against top competition, 3-year starter, came out early now as a junior. I think he would be a great pick for the Browns and a solid foundational piece going forward.
Love it, dude. That's a great pick right there for Cleveland. They were left tackle away from having one of the better offensive lines in football, considering bringing in Jack Conklin at right tackle and what they had at guard and center already. This could be the start of something real special in Cleveland. With that in mind, Greg, you're up, bro. 11th overall, New York Jets. Gang green, baby. Where they going?
So the hometown New York Jets.
They got a lot of needs, boy.
They got a lot of needs, and they made about 4 or 5 free agency moves on the O-line. None of them worth noting. Backup guys. So, they could go the offensive line route here, but I'm not sold on Brashad Perriman being their number 1 receiver. I think their biggest need is getting Darnold a weapon playmaker. So I don't know. Going into this whole process, Jeudy was probably the number 1 receiver at the end of the college football season, but I think CeeDee Lamb has jumped them since the combine. So I got the Jets getting Darnold his new favorite teammate and wide receiver from Oklahoma, CeeDee Lamb. Sorry.
CeeDee Lamb, and I know that's one of the key players that have been mocked there a lot. And I know there's been reports out there that if the Jets are going to go wide receiver, that Lamb is the guy that they covet. So this is a real solid selection here, and one I can really see going on tomorrow night when all things are said and done.
I definitely think it's one of the more likely picks in the draft. I'm definitely mocking it in my mock, personally. But someone might jump them. That we might see the Broncos jump them. That's one of the rumored teams to jump them with the Browns pick.
Yeah, what is this? Darnold, he's going into his 4th year now?
Third
year? Third. Yeah, and honestly, he hasn't looked like a franchise quarterback yet. It's been a bit of a disappointment, but that's not all on him. The O-line is terrible. Been one of the worst in the league. His weapons are terrible. This is a deep draft for linemen, so I think they could grab a lineman in the second round.
Agreed.
That's the clock. All right. I love it. So let's move on. CeeDee Lamb off the board at number 11 overall to the Jets. Now I'm on the clock with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders are an interesting team. They're a team that could also go into in a few different directions. John Gruden is unpredictable when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. We know he likes, if he has a guy he likes, they go hard after those guys. They are also building the team in a very specific way. They want high character guys. They want leaders, team captains, guys who will buy into the program and try to grow with their teammates and really get a good program, going out there. Now, coming into the draft, the Raiders made a lot of offseason moves. They added a couple of solid linebackers, Corey Littleton and Nick Kwiatkowski. They've made moves like Jason Witten. They've committed to Derek Carr, seemingly. Demarius Randall at safety plugs a hole. So they did a good job this offseason of making some moves that really shored up on a lot of fronts. Nelson Aguilar was a nice get at receiver, a nice solid slot guy. But they still have needs at receiver, corner, along the defensive line. So I think it's time for the Oakland Raiders to do the right thing, buy Derek Carr. They tried with Lamar. They tried a couple of years ago with Cooper. It didn't really work. They just didn't mesh well. But they need a number one wide receiver. If Carr's going to take that next step, that offense is going to take that next step. This team is going to take that next step. They need that number one marquee guy. I'm going to have Jerry Jeudy going to them here. This is someone who's been mocked to them quite a few times. Maybe the best route runner in this class. Played a lot in the slot at Alabama, but that does not matter. He can play inside. He can play outside. He's got the true size as a wide receiver one. And with him and Tyrell Williams, that's a nice 1-2 punch. Hunter Renfrow in the slot with Nelson Aguilar. Carr's going to have some good options. Josh Jacobs in the backfield. Darren Waller off of a great year. It's going to be good times in Vegas. With that in mind, San Francisco's on the clock. Bob, take it away.
All right. So the San Francisco 49ers acquired this pick in the DeForest Buckner trade with the Indianapolis Colts. They had too many mouths to feed. They brought in Nick Bosa in the draft. Eric Armstead was due for a huge pay raise this offseason, which they gave him. I believe he got a 5-year, $85 million contract.
Money.
Buckner, yes, definitely. Buckner's even surpassed that with the Colts. So they weren't able to keep him in the fold. And now it's really tempting here, the way the board has fallen, for them to potentially take Derek Brown here, the defensive tackle out of Auburn, because he might be the best player available at this spot.
Dude, could you imagine if he dropped to 13 in real life? The analysts would be losing their fucking minds.
They would be losing their minds, but at the same time, I think people would realize the fact that he isn't someone that's going to generate a ton of pressure in the league as far as sacks. He can generate pressure, don't get me wrong, but he's not someone that's going to be a double-digit sack artist. He's not Aaron Donald. He's not Warren Sapp. He can definitely push the pocket, but he's better against the run, and that's mainly where he's going to make his money. With that said, I think they get a weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo. I think we continue the run on wide receivers here, and they take Henry Ruggs III out of Alabama. So we have our third wide receiver off the board that happens to be all consecutively. Derek Brown would be hard to pass up, but they've already put so many picks on that line between not only Bosa and Eric Armstead, but also Solomon Thomas, who still is in the fold at defensive tackle. And even though they'd love to add that pass rusher or even that run stuffer, rather, in Derek Brown, I think they go Henry Ruggs, help him out. He's got the best deep speed of any receiver in this draft. He ran the fastest 40 of any player in years since John Ross set the record years ago. I think they get another weapon for Jimmy Garoppolo. And he's not a one-trick pony. I think he can run the route tree, and he's more developed than people give him credit for. So I think they take him at 13.
All right. So we got 3 wide receivers going back to back to back. Lamb, Jeudy, Ruggs. And suddenly, Greg is on the board, 14th overall with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. John, pay attention. Greg's about to piss you off. Here we go. What's it going to be?
The Tampa Bay Patriots.
Tampa. I like it.
Brady's the worst for trying to trademark some of those.
These are, yeah, he is.
Tampa Brady.
They're so corny.
Dumb.
He's a clown. All right, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I guess they're one of the most improved teams this offseason. They did get the GOAT. They just got Gronk yesterday.
Yep.
They still have a ton of holes though. I wanted to mock DeAndre Swift right here. They haven't had a running back since Warwick Dunn, worth mentioning, which was 15 years ago.
Peyton Barber doesn't do it for you?
No, Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones do not do it for me. Go get Mike
Yeah, it's
Allstott
bad.
right now to come out of retirement.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right now. But being that Derek Brown just keeps falling in this mock draft right here, he's easily a top 10 player in this draft. And Bucks are at 14 right now. They signed Sue on a 1-year deal. He's up there in age, so he's not going to be around much longer. They could go O-line. Mekhi Becton would be a nice pick right here. They just have a ton of holes still. I'm going to say Derek Brown, though. He could be an anchor on that defensive line for the next 10 years going forward. They could always grab a running back prospect in the second round. Like I said, it's a deep draft for O-linemen. You could also grab a O-lineman in the second round if they needed to. So picks Derek Brown, D tackle out of Auburn.
Yeah, dude, it'd be crazy if Brown fell this far. I really don't see that happening. But, you never know, man.
Well, you
NFL's
wanted to
fucking
take
crazy.
C.J. Henderson at 9, so that kind of screwed it up.
You like that?
I don't, but it could happen. I don't think it's outlandish that he could hit double digits just because there seems to be a premium on wide receivers and tackles, at least from what we're hearing leading up to the draft.
Yeah, Brown's not getting that much love, which sounds a little weird, but it is what it is. But anyway, the Denver Broncos, number 15 overall, and myself back on the clock. The Broncos are a very interesting – excuse me, they're a very interesting team.
Corona.
No, stop it. So they added Melvin Gordon in the offseason. They also added a trio of Detroit Lions, the key one being Graham Glasgow to plug in and start at guard for them. But Denver still has a lot of ways they can go. They would probably be pretty fucking disgusted that all these wide receivers came off the board as early as they did. The only other first-round grade I have on a receiver left is Justin Jefferson from LSU, but I don't know how I really feel about that pick right here, considering the talent that's still on the board. They also need help back corner, in the secondary in general. They could use another guard or center in there, but I don't have any interior linemen with that grade. It's a weird spot to be in. I'm not going to lie. The way the board's falling, I'm not a fan of a lot of these options for the Broncos. I'd probably lean towards trading down if I was them in this spot. Because also I don't want to reach on some second-round graded prospect quite yet. But the guys on the board that I like, Kinlaw doesn't really fit. They added a bunch of guys in the offseason, particularly bringing back Shelby Harris and trading for Jarrell Casey from the Tennessee Titans for bacon, egg, and cheese. So, so I don't think they go D-line here, even with Kinlaw still on the board. I don't think they go Mekhi Becton. They're okay at tackle for the moment. I think it's too early for McKinney or Murray. I'm a little disgusted, but I'm going to go with Justin Jefferson from LSU. They do need a wide receiver to plug in there next to Cortland Sutton. He shitted. He played very well this past year. He showed that he's their wide receiver one. Him, Font, and now Jefferson would be a nice group, along with Gordon, would be a nice group for Drew Lock.
All right, so Justin Jefferson off the board.
And that's 4 receivers off the board. And Bob, you're back on the clock, 16th overall with the Atlanta Falcons. Here we go.
All right, so the Atlanta Falcons are picking here at 16, a team that could trade up rather than trade down more than likely. But I do think they stay here eventually. I don't think they're as likely to trade up as, say, the Falcons because they really don't want to get too far up. They're not asking to get up to 2 to take Chase Young. They're maybe just trying to jump 4 or 5 spots. At 16, the Falcons can't take C.J. Henderson here. Dannery took him at number 9, and that could happen. I could see C.J. Henderson being valued higher than anticipated, and he's really generated buzz like Dan's talked about over the last few months. Falcons did make a lot of additions in the offseason, more lost players than anything else. They cut Devontae Freeman. They could use a running back. I don't think they take that guy here, though. probably more of a second rounder that they're going to use on a running back potentially. With the way the board fell, I have the best prospect available as Javon Kinlaw, the defensive tackle out of South Carolina. He's 10th on my big board, and he's sitting here at 16 for the Falcons. The Falcons could definitely use someone like Javon Kinlaw to push the middle of the pocket. So I have them taking him here, the product out of South Carolina. I think you play in any scheme, but especially if they're going to run a 4-3, I do like him better there to get upfield in a one-gap scheme, be a 3 technique probably, or even a 1 technique. They're going to rotate them regardless. And he'd be an instant upgrade on that defensive line. You also have Grady Jarrett there, but other than him, not much to write home about. Jury's still out on Takk McKinley. Vic Beasley proved to be a bust. Maybe he'll reclimate his career on the Titans now. We'll wait and see about that. But they go with some defensive line help, and the best player on the board right here with Javon Kinlaw.
Dude, that's a great pick. I may have gone a different direction, maybe Chazon or somebody like that, but that's a hell of a pick. And another marquee player, one of my favorite guys, comes off the board. Kinlaw, number 16 to the Falcons. The Dallas Cowboys sitting at number 17. Greg, you're on the board.
Dallas is gonna go with defense here. Don't probably edge rush. But they did lose Byron Jones to the Dolphins. He signed a huge contract down there. So they could go cornerback here. I don't know. They don't have too many holes on offense. I mean, they got to sign Dak to a long-term deal. O-line is still fine, even with Travis Frederick retiring. They got Zeke. They got Amari Cooper signed long-term. They're definitely going the defensive side of the football. I'll say, C.J. Henderson's off the board already. You still got Trayvon Diggs on the board from Alabama. I'm going to go K'Lavon Chaisson, edge rusher from LSU. He's probably the best pass rusher left on the board. They got to get someone on the opposite side of DeMarcus Lawrence, help him out. So that's where I'm going with this pick.
All right. Chazon going to the Dallas Cowboys. They signed a bunch of free agents in the offseason, particularly on the defensive line.
Sorry to cut you off. Aldon Smith. Wow, that's probably the most shocking move of the offseason.
He was one of those signings.
Last I heard of him was the bomb threat at the airport. It's the last thing I remember. Man's been out the league for 5 years. He's eligible for the Hall of Fame right now, I feel like.
Nice. Real fucking nice. Fucking fiends.
Do we see him hitting the field at all, or is he going to get cut in training camp?
He's getting cut in training camp, bro.
Yeah.
There's no reason to bring him in. But no, they brought in McCoy, Dante Poe. Yeah, they brought Aldon Smith in and shit like that. But DeMarcus Lawrence needs a running mate, and Tyrone Crawford's a run stopper. And you haven't
they
seen
lost
anything.
Robert Quinn too.
Yep. And Robert Quinn was a huge loss, and you haven't seen anything from Dorrance Armstrong at the end, who they drafted out of the 4th round a couple of years ago. So, dude, this is a good look, and he would just be another young athletic stud to add to that defense with Lawrence, Van Der Esch, Jalen Smith. Real quality addition. I like that. It's a little bit of a surprise, but I like it.
Yeah, if he turns out to be a good pro, they probably have the best young linebacking core in all football with, like you said, Jalen Smith, Van Der Esch, and himself.
Yeah, so that's great. So Chazon, another marquee defensive player off the board. And now the Miami Dolphins and myself. I'm back on the clock with the Dolphins. Now, earlier, Greg had the 5th overall pick for the Dolphins, their first pick, and he went with Justin Herbert, which I think was a great move and really sets me up to do something special here. And I got a lot of options with the Miami Dolphins because this is a team that has needs all over the board. My initial reaction was like, oh my God, DeAndre Swift would be absolutely perfect here. But they did bring in Jordan Howard, and he is still young. I think he's only still 25 or 26, even though he's been in the league for a decade, it feels like. He's still relatively young. I like him. Bob knows how much I still like Jordan Howard. I think he's got something in him. And the Dolphins have needs everywhere. Running back isn't one of those positions where you want to spend a first round pick on somebody, unless you see they're going to fit your system and they're going to be a perennial Pro Bowler, which Swift, I believe, could be. I think he's got that potential, but the way the board's fallen and the way their needs line up, I know some rumors recently have been about the Dolphins potentially trading up to try to take an offensive tackle as early as third overall. I think that's a bit high for the tackles, unless they wanted to just cock block the Giants and make sure they got their guy. But since we're not doing trade ups, we're not doing trade downs, they sit here at number 18, still with a left tackle needed. I mean, they got Julian Davenport and Jesse Davis at left and right tackle, and it's fucking horrendous. Yuck. Because they also have Eric Flowers at guard, and I want to vomit because that man got a 3-year, $30 million contract. And it's not the Donovan Smith deal, but it's putrid. So anyway, I'm going to go Mekhi Becton right here from Louisville. I'm surprised he slid down the board as far as he did. I think tackles, all these guys are going to be off the board, but he'll slide right in at left tackle and protect Herbert's blind side for the next decade. And Bob, you're on the board with the second Raiders first round pick. Take it away.
Can I just ask a question before Bob gets on the clock?
Yeah, please.
Being at 420 was 2 days ago. Who do you think blows it down more, Mekhi Becton or Laramie Tunsil?
Oh, definitely Tunsil. That man's a legend. We saw that face mask. That's some professional shit.
Yeah. All right, Bob.
Bob, you're having audio problems. I don't know if you muted yourself. You got semen in your microphone. Nice. I see that. I see that you mouth that. But
Bob.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
so Bob figured things out. Sorry about the technical difficulties, folks. But Bob is okay now. And we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do the second half of this mock draft. We are currently at number 19, and Bob is on the clock with the Raiders. So be sure to tune into that next one to catch the second half of the first round and see how this mock draft shapes up. So far, it's pretty friggin' interesting. So I'm excited to see the second half of this. We'll catch you guys later.